Welcome to the Sisterhood of Sweat. I have a super special guest today, Rae Bradford. Rae is the founder of the, how do you say it?
The Potentialista.
Potentialista. I wanted to make sure that I had that right. I love that because we all have so much potential that is yet to be discovered, and it's untapped within us. Hang on, you guys. I'm just making sure because I know I switched bios. Okay, here we are. Here we are. Anyway, she is the founder of The Potentialista, Rae Bradford, if you're just tuning in. And this is a boutique public relations agency that works with authors, entrepreneurs, and thought leaders to help them share their innovative ideas with a larger audience while also building a respected reputation as an expert. Her experience as women's leadership coach and columnist for the Huffington Post and Thrive Global gives her a unique perspective on what it is like to be on both sides of building relationships with the media and communication strategy. As a leadership coach, she has built an international mentorship program for women leaders who are building purpose-driven companies and on a mission to change the world. In 2017 alone, she was featured in over 20 media outlets, radio, podcasts, print, and digital publications, including Forbes, and was named a leader in the rise of the super positive millennial woman by Glamour magazine. She is on a mission to help other businesses make the impact they desire using the strategies and tools that have helped her achieve her own success. Welcome, Rae, to the show.
Thank you so much, Linda. I'm so excited to be here.
Yeah, I'm so excited that we finally got to do this and that we connected. Actually, I love the internet. We connected via Facebook and became friends, and I took an advantage of an opportunity that Tara presented me to help springboard the Sisterhood of Sweat onto a bigger platform, which we're talking about today somewhat in the bio. And so I am one of the sponsors for the TED Talk in New York City, Looking Beyond, TEDx Talk, Looking Beyond, and in New York City on Lincoln Square. And this was a huge leap for me. You know, sometimes you're standing back in your comfort zone, but at this burning desire, you just really want to do something. And I just kept feeling this burning in my spirit, and my heart. And so I took the leap and I jumped. So we're going to be there pretty soon, not too many weeks away.
March 27th. I can't wait to meet you in person. I'm so excited. And to go along with that, I remember when I first mentioned it, you thought about it for a while before you said yes. And I know I've had so many experiences like that too, where I had to really think about it because it is stretching outside of your comfort zone. So I'm so excited you decided to do it though.
Oh, thanks. So we're going to talk a little bit about that today, along with imposter syndrome and a few other things. So make sure you guys tune into the live feed, because we will answer some questions. And if you have any questions about, or you relate to the topic, we'll give you a shout out. So just without any further ado, we're going to dive in. And first of all, I'm going to talk about how Tara changed her whole life from being a nurse to starting a business. Can you tell us the backstory on that?
Yeah, it's actually, I feel like it's my whole life story. So I'm going to jump straight to the point and not give you the whole background. But I started.
We love stories. We love storytelling.
How much time do you have? But I was a critical care nurse for 8 years, mostly in trauma and neurocritical care. And so working with people who had been in car accidents or gunshot wounds at a level 1 trauma center for the majority of that time. And I decided, well, I guess it took a long time for me to realize this, but I had spent a lot of time with people who were going through transitions, and it wasn't necessarily transitions in their life that they wanted or expected, or that they could see that it's really like a traumatic time to go through something like that where your whole life is about to be different. And so one of the most rewarding parts of my job was helping show people that on the other side of this injury or this tragedy or whatever was going on, whatever had just happened that was unexpected, they were going to be okay. And there were ways that they could go back to their lives and transition into doing things a little bit differently, but the different wasn't necessarily going to be bad. And then there were times where my patients, unfortunately, didn't survive the injuries. And the other side of it was that I heard a lot of regrets sitting there with people at a really difficult, vulnerable time. And one of the most common things I heard from people was that they regretted not spending more time with the person who was now not well. And I realized as a nurse, I could take care of people. I had medications, I had resources, I had everything I needed to take care of that person. But what people really wanted, I couldn't give them. I couldn't turn back the clock and give them more time. And this was really frustrating for me for a while. I think it took me 3 or 4 years before I discovered coaching. And I was just thinking, how can I solve this? How can I go back in time and meet people when they're thriving, when they're making partner in that law firm, or when they're, going back to school to get their master's, and really talk to them about why they're doing that and why that's so important right then, and really show them what's actually important in life. Like, why are you doing all of the things? And I had to do it in my own life too. At the time, I reached the top of my career path when I was 26, and I was the director of nursing for a surgery center. And I was working all the time, and I was exhausted, and I was making the most money I'd ever made in my life, but I wasn't fulfilled. But I had, the nice apartment in downtown Seattle overlooking the water. I had the fancy car. I had the job title. And I really had to look at my life and think, like, I don't really have anything, even though I have all the things I'm supposed to. And at the time I was married as well. And so I had a husband, and on social media, it looked like our relationship was perfect. And we had the dog, and we were thinking of buying a house. And it was really a mess. Underneath all of that stuff, everything was a mess. And he was actually cheating on me, and we ended up getting divorced because of that. But it was such a wake-up call for me that I was doing the same thing that I was watching other people do, and I was frustrated that I couldn't help them, and I also needed to help myself get out of that cycle. And so I experimented a little bit with some different things. I moved from the West Coast to the East Coast. So I tried changing cities, got into a new relationship, thought I would go back to school, and tried all of these things just to see what would work. And I ended up, things got worse before they got better. I ended up, sorry, I'm going to just pause while the ambulance goes by. I'm in New York City now. It's kind of noisy.
They're coming to get you. They know you used to be a nurse and need your services.
Right. Okay, we're good. So I ended up moving, and I started doing makeup tutorials on YouTube. And I did that for a couple of years, and it was fun. And I hadn't been creative since college, and it was just so exciting. And I was learning again, and I was doing something different while I was working as a nurse on the East Coast. And I found myself in a relationship with someone who didn't really think that my YouTube videos were as cool as I thought they were. He was a little bit like, he thought it was a distraction. He called it a hobby. He didn't really get it. And so there were some other things going on in that relationship besides this, but that was the moment when I realized that I wanted to do something different, and that nobody was going to tell me that I couldn't do something. And so I ended up, it took me a little while. It took me about 6 months to realize that no one was going to tell me I couldn't do something. But I really wanted to do it. I wanted to be creative. And the more I did these videos and taught people about makeup, the more feedback I got from women saying, I feel confident. They were like, my husband sees me for the first time. Yeah. And I was getting all of these messages, and I thought, wow, how can I make a huge impact for women and really help? Like, this lights me up. These messages from people saying they feel confident and that I taught them something valuable was just everything to me. And I wasn't really getting paid to do it. And it was just more valuable than any paycheck I'd ever had in my life. And when that relationship ended, I actually decided I was going to move to New York City. And that was where my journey to having a business began, because I wasn't really running towards New York. I didn't really have my dream life in mind. I didn't have a plan. Everything I had planned for my life, like getting married, getting promoted, buying the Mercedes, all of those things, I had done it, but it didn't work out. So I thought, what if I just throw the plan out the window and go for it without really knowing what I'm going to do? And so I got a travel nursing job in New York, and I was actually running away from my old life with a not so great or supportive relationship and a job that didn't really light me up in a city where I didn't really have a lot of friends. So I can't say that it was like super brave and I had a plan and I knew exactly what I was going to do next, but I was just like, I just know I can't be here anymore. And so came to New York with a 3-month plan. I was actually going to go to grad school next, and I fell in love with the city, and I decided to stay. And I was working nights as a traveling nurse, and I had a couple suitcases with me. I didn't have all of my stuff that went into storage. And so I learned that I could really feel alive for the first time in my life, separate from all of the things. And that was really powerful. And the way that I did that, the first thing I did was I made a bucket list, because I thought, I'm only going to be in New York for 3 months, so I need to make it awesome. So I wrote down everything I wanted to do while I was here, and I just started crossing things off that list and doing them. And it was little things like I rode the subway from the southernmost part of Manhattan all the way up to this beautiful park. It took like an hour and 15 minutes. I don't know what made me think to do that, but I was just like, I wonder how long it takes to go from one end of Manhattan to the other. Silly things like that. And
I love it.
It was fun.
Living, right? It's living life to the fullest.
Totally. And so I loved it so much that I thought, I can't give it all up and go back to school. And that feels like a step backwards now, because now I'm really living and loving my life. And while I was in New York, I actually met a coach. My first friends here were bartenders. They're the people who have to talk to you if you're sitting in front of them.
Hey, that's a good one.
Yeah. So I like cornered them.
Personal trainers too are also like bartenders. I will attest to that.
Yes. So I was sitting visiting one of my friends at the bar, and someone sat down next to me, and I found out that there was this whole coaching industry that I had never known about before. And I ended up working with my first coach after that, getting certified in high performance coaching, and really diving a lot deeper into what it means to really live your life. I hate to sound cliche, but to the fullest.
No, it's not cliche. I think we all need to hear that more, because we get caught up in the same old, the grind, the daily grind. You get stuck in habits because you did something a certain way, or you've always had the same old job. You get stuck in a rut.
Right. So from that point on, I started surrounding myself with people who were doing all of these interesting things that I wanted to do, and just learning from them and growing and building that support system that I hadn't had before. And that made all the difference in where I am today, was the people that I built relationships with, that I surrounded myself with, and really getting outside of those toxic relationships and away from the ones that weren't supportive to really be supported. Because people who are successful, they don't get there by themselves. They don't do it on their own. And that kind of leads me into imposter syndrome, is that feeling like I have to do it myself. I can't delegate. I'm the only person who can do this. I had to let go of that mindset of, if I want it done right, I have to do it myself, because that's not the best way to do things.
It certainly isn't, coming from somebody that always, I grew up without support. So I was very independent, because I learned you had to depend upon yourself. This was a message kind of ingrained in me from childhood, and through a few toxic relationships. But I have really started stepping into, it is who you surround yourself with. Are they on the same mission as you? Support is a two-way street. Are the people around you supporting you, or are they slowing you down? Are they like barnacle suckers on a boat that just pulls the boat down? Or are they lifting you up, like the boy in the water? Is it lifting you up or dragging you down? How do you feel after you're around somebody? Do you feel like the life was sucked out of you, or do you feel excited and feel like you're ready to just take on the day, and they get you going, get your juices flowing? And so I started really stepping forward out of that old mentality into, I'm going to hire this person. This person will help me with my podcast. This person will help me with my online course. Those are their strengths. And so I'm going to capitalize on what I'm not strong in and build this team. So on my vision board this year, it says teamwork makes the dream work. And once I started doing that, oh my gosh, did we start really moving ahead. I saw the beauty in it. I saw so many things. Like it's almost like it gives you this window that you can look through and truly see, like, you're like, oh wow, I was really stuck in that whole old, relationships, old mindsets, thinking I had to do it all of myself. Well, you can't, if you're going to go anywhere worth going, you can't go by yourself. You got to have the help of others.
Right.
Yeah.
It's so true. I agree.
So let's dive into this topic, imposter syndrome. How many of you guys out there ever feel like you get this dream job, or you get this speaking event, or something just really cool, and you feel sort of like, oh my God, they're going to find me out. They're going to find out that I'm not who they think I am.
Mm-hmm.
Tell us a little bit about the syndrome, and just what are the symptoms?
Yeah, it's, I think one of the most important things to know about imposter syndrome is what it says about you. I think self-awareness is the biggest part to really taking that first step and overcoming imposter syndrome. And so what it really means is that you're a high achiever, that you are capable of doing amazing things, and you enjoy climbing that mountain, and you enjoy getting to the top, and you love getting 100% on your test in school, or straight A student, or all of those things. And so having imposter syndrome isn't really a negative thing. It just means that you hold yourself to a really high standard. And so I think that we all need to kind of pat ourselves on the back at how we have raised that bar, and we are high achievers. And the missing piece there with imposter syndrome, when it becomes a negative, is when you feel like you don't deserve all of the things that are coming into your life, all of the wonderful things that you're achieving. You feel like you're not good enough. You feel like people might find out that you're a fraud. And so maybe you don't apply for jobs where you don't fit 100% of the qualifications that are listed on the application, or you feel guilty for leaving work early or even on time. Maybe you think you have to stay late every day to prove yourself, or that if you take vacation time, then you're not taking your job seriously enough, or maybe you get accused of micromanaging people. And I know I mentioned a little bit earlier, maybe you don't delegate things to other people, or you think you have to do it all yourself, or you think you have to get more education, like me when I was like, oh, I have to go back to college and add some more letters behind my name. Or you get stuck in learning without pausing to implement things that you're learning. And so it's really like it's never good enough. And that reflects in your subconscious. You end up telling yourself, if it's never enough, then I'm never going to be good enough. And that's where it becomes the problem.
Not feeling enough.
Yeah.
Yeah. Or feeling maybe, you get what you were wanting. You get it, like in my case, you get a guest on the that was on the Oprah show, that, was on Dr. Oz, and that, got an Academy Award. And then you get another guest that's equally as amazing in the same day. And you're sitting there like, oh my God, you're like in almost overwhelm. Mm-hmm. And you're there in the dream, but then you may question yourself, like, do I deserve this moment? Is this really my, I could totally see where people might feel like not enough, or just I'm trying to think of the word there. It's almost like you're overwhelmed by the whole dream of it all. And am I worthy? Do I deserve to step into this?
Right. And also the other part of it is that you've worked so hard. You've been hustling. You've been doing a lot of things to get to that point. And in the back of your mind, it feels so far away. They say that we overestimate what we can do in the short term, but we underestimate what we can do in the long term. And I think that's so important to remember. When you cross that finish line, you have to stop running and appreciate it. And I think if you are hustling and running and sprinting, you might run past the finish line and not even notice it. And that's when you have to stop and really reflect on, okay, I crossed that finish line. I got featured on Oprah or Dr. Oz, and I need to just pause right now and enjoy this moment and take myself out of the hustle and the grind and all of those things, and just pause and sit with it and feel it and enjoy it.
What is the science behind this, behind imposter syndrome?
It's actually, it has to do with the sympathetic nervous system. And in your brain, there's three different brains. There's your reptilian brain, your limbic system, and then your neocortex. And if you think about the time when we were all cavemen and women, and we had to hunt our food, and there were life-threatening things every day. Like if you were being chased by a bear, it would activate your sympathetic nervous system to fight or flight. And so in order to survive, you had to tap into that reptilian brain that's like your basic response to danger. And over time, we've evolved. We don't get chased by bears every day. We get our food in the supermarket, but we still have these moments of self-doubt and criticism and things like that that activate our stress response. Or you're going to do something that scares you, like maybe you're going to reach out to the Oprah show and ask to be featured on there, and it scares you and you start to think like, oh my gosh, what's going to happen, or what are they going to say, or is my story impressive enough? And you start to worry and you start to ruminate on those thoughts. And it actually, science has shown that that releases the same stress hormones that you release when you're being chased by a bear. It's at a smaller amount, and so it's not as dramatic. You don't feel like running away, but you kind of get that pit in your stomach where you're like, should I do this? Maybe I should just not. Maybe I should just not send that email. And you sit there and think about it over time and you worry about it. And as you're worrying about it and stretching that out and not taking action, you're still stressing yourself out. You're still releasing those hormones, and that affects your entire body. It affects your metabolism. It affects it affects how your cells are duplicating. It affects everything. And so because your body thinks it's under attack.
Well, yeah, the flight or fright response for sure is it's going to kick in when you're doing things, I guess, that you're deep down kind of afraid of.
Yes.
That really makes sense. Just kind of hearing the background, the science of it. What are some tools people can use if, they are going for it, all of a sudden they're in the middle of it, they got this great job, like they wanted to make 7 figures, and all of a sudden they are making 7 figures, and it happens so fast, it feels surreal. They can't, like, they're feeling like an imposter, like, is this like my life? Like, this doesn't, because it doesn't feel what in their comfort zone. Yeah. So what are some tools to help with this feeling like I'm fake, I'm a phony, people are going to find me out?
It's all mindset. It's all about shifting from being your biggest critic or your biggest, or just worrying, shifting your mindset from that into a place where you are your biggest cheerleader and you are celebrating every little thing. And it doesn't even have to be making 7 figures. It could be just celebrating that you had a cup of coffee this morning and you love coffee, or celebrating, creating those little moments in your life where you can celebrate the things that are really important to you. And the key to that is choosing things that you have complete control over. And so, for example, in a bad relationship, you can't control what the other person is saying to you. I couldn't control the amount of support I was getting from that person. I mean, I could try to communicate, I could try to explain, I could try to see things from the other person's perspective. But at the end of the day, if I woke up every morning thinking, I'll be happy today if the other person understands what I'm doing and is supportive, that's setting yourself up to not be happy that day. But if you focus on something that you have control over, like what you can do, what actions you can take, or even just doing things that you enjoy doing. Like for me, getting on that subway and riding it for an hour and 15 minutes across Manhattan, that was something I had control over. I could control getting on the subway. And so focusing on things that you have control over and things that you can be grateful for, and celebrating little moments in your life, making I am statements instead of I will be, or in the future I want, and really telling yourself that you already are the person who is capable of achieving those things. So maybe you're not at 7 figures yet. Yet is my favorite word, and you should add it on the end of every sentence when you are describing the person that you want to become, because just stopping at I am not making 7 figures, it it feeds your subconscious these negative thoughts, like of focusing on what you're not doing instead of focusing on what you are doing. And so adding the word yet makes it sound like it's possible, it's within reach, and you are on your way there. But just saying, I am a business owner and my business is thriving, that feels way better than I hope to one day make 7 figures. So it's about flipping those words around.
Definitely what you say to yourself. I mean, I really believe in the power of the language that you're speaking to yourself being the most powerful language that is spoken, because you're going to be listening to yourself 24/7. So you better be careful what you say to yourself, right?
It's so true. And talk to yourself the way that you would your best friends, because if you said some of the things to your best friend that you say to yourself, they probably wouldn't be your friend anymore.
Right. And I think sometimes you got to listen what's going on between your 2 ears. You got to listen what's going on in there. Like, you don't even pay attention to what you're actually saying to yourself. But if you were to stop and listen to what you're actually saying to yourself, you would realize you need to rewire that thinking, because that is where it all starts, is right here, right there. What you're thinking is soon what you're feeling, and it's what you're doing. And what you tell yourself is what you actually believe.
Right. It's so true. And so when you notice that you're doing that, it's not that I want you to say, oh my gosh, that was bad. I shouldn't ever think anything negative or say anything negative, and I should be happy all the time and positive, because that feeds the imposter syndrome. It's like that fake it till you make it, but you still feel like a fraud and you still are telling yourself that it's fake. And so really it's just about pausing and saying, wait a minute, that's not me. That's not really what I believe, and bringing it back to what is going to serve you or what's going to help propel you forward. And sometimes even thinking about it, you mentioned feelings, and thinking about it from the perspective of a 5-year-old. If I have any moms listening, 5-year-olds love to ask why. Why are we doing things the way that we're doing? And why do we have to go to the grocery store, or whatever they're asking why about, but really turning around and asking yourself why. So if we go back to my example of wanting to get promoted at work, and I asked myself why, it was to make more money. But why did I want to make more money? Because I wanted to start a family. And why did I want to make more money for my family? Because I wanted to support them, and I wanted them to have the opportunity to thrive. And at the end of the day, I think if you ask why enough times, it really comes down to love and relationships and belonging and family. And so, yes, we started with, I want to get promoted at work, but when you dig deep enough, why you're doing that is because you want something else, something deeper, something more meaningful. And so it's really important to see the whole perspective.
Yeah, I mean, 100%. And I have a story I like to tell, and I've told it before, but I just think it's worth the listen. I was at a conference in New York City with Isaiah Hankel, the author of The Black Hole Focus, and now he's written another book, The Science of Intelligent Success. And he had this workshop, and in the workshop we had to create our perfect day scenario, and you had to do it with a partner. You had to do it one, not just one, not just 2, but 3 times, because you're not dreaming big enough on the first and second time. So the 3rd time I was really out there. Like, I put all my dreams around the clock on the paper of what I wanted to achieve. But like, I stepped out there, because he said the others were too close to my normal day. So, oh my gosh, the things I wrote on the paper were crazy. And he decided to call me up front, and I'm like, oh no, I got to read my paper in front of these people. They're going to know what I really want to do. Like, I was just like, so I get up there and I said, I don't want anyone to think these are the things I really wanted. So I said, this is my alter ego speaking, not really me. This is my alter ego. And so he says, did you guys hear what she just said? She said this is her alter ego speaking. And then he looked at the list and he's like, can you guys see her living the things on this list? And they're all like, yeah. And he's like, I can see her living the things on this list. And then he turned to me and he said, you deserve to live the things on this list. And I'm telling you, that was like the most powerful words spoken to me, is realizing that that could be seen as me and that I deserved it. Because I think a lot of times we don't truly believe we deserve what we want. And so, you know, so I'm reading things on my list. I'm kind of embarrassed because one of them was I want a skinny dip at midnight. And I'm like, you know, I don't want people to know I actually really want to do that. And it was all these crazy things. Like I wanted to have breakfast with celebrities. I wanted to podcast. I wasn't podcasting. I wanted to podcast. I wanted to podcast in the afternoon. I wanted to, you know, be at my beach house and do a photo shoot in the morning. I'm thinking, you know, beforehand and do my workout with my celebrity trainer. And at night, you know, I mean, it was just amazing. Like I was writing sea-doos with my husband out in the ocean. And, you know, I was creating recipes in the afternoon and writing because that's a passion of mine. At night, we were eating dinner and watching old movies. And so all of these things, oh, I wanted to swim with the dolphins. So within a month, I started actualizing all these things on the list. Mm-hmm. And I want to tell you, it freaked me out a little bit because it was happening so fast. So I think maybe I was suffering a lot from what we're talking about.
Yeah. And I think it happens multiple times throughout your career, throughout your business, throughout your life. Every time you do something new that's uncomfortable, you feel it again. It's not something that you overcome once and then it's gone forever.
Yeah. I mean, and you know, it was just things like I wrote these things out. But what I really meant about what, like, I thought I laughed so hard when I'm like, I don't know where breakfast with celebrities came from, but what that meant was, I haven't actualized that one yet. That's one yet to happen. Yeah, I'm saying yet. But I think what I meant is I want to work with powerful game changers because I'm here for more, and I know I'm here for more. And the podcasting, well, here we are. And the swimming with the dolphins, I'll put it up in the show notes. And my husband and I are working on the beach house. And so dream because you deserve it and go after things because you are worthy of them.
Yes. And along those lines of having other people help you see yourself in a way that you have never seen yourself before, when I started working with my very first coach, it was about 3 or 4 sessions in, and I was the queen of being fine. Everything was fine. Everyone else was more important than me. I needed to make sure everyone else was happy and just like really take care of everyone around me. And when I started working with a coach, it was our 3rd session and he was asking me how things were going. And of course it was always fine. Everything was always great. I didn't need help with anything because I had it by myself. And he goes, you know what? He said, you don't love yourself. And it was like a dagger in my heart. I was like, what? Nobody has ever said that to me before in my whole life. And this person just met me. And here I had been pretending like everything was fine for so long that he really like broke it down for me. I mean, I cried the rest of the time I was talking to him, but it's because he was right. Like, and not that I wasn't capable of loving myself, but that I was beating myself up over all of the things I wasn't doing instead of being nice to myself about all of the things that I was doing. And here I was thinking that on the outside everything looked fine, and here a relative stranger was telling me that he saw right through all of my crap and was like, no, this is really your problem and you need to deal with it. And I was just, that was a huge turning point for me in really changing the way that I see myself so that I could show up in the world the way that I'm supposed to.
Well, I think sometimes we get used to glossing things over and just pretending like everything is okay. Mm-hmm. And that is a normal human thing, you know. And I recently was talking to my coach. She asked me how you are, and I heard, you know, she records our calls, so it's really a learning tool to be listening back to yourself, because I said, I'm good. Oh my gosh, I was not good. I was not good that day. And so I think we just get used to not really saying what the truth is. And how did you start? Because I think a lot of people don't love themselves. So how did you start beginning to have that self-love and stop beating yourself up and start building yourself up? Because I think that's key.
You know, it came from celebrating the things that were going right. We also, he made me make a list of everything I wanted. And it could not include things I didn't want. And that was huge for me because I used to think it was selfish to want things and to want, and it was bragging to talk about my accomplishments. And if you haven't read The Big Leap by Gay Hendricks, it talks about upper limiting and how when things seem too good to be true, or when things are going so right for you, that you can turn it around and self-sabotage because you don't believe that you're worthy of it. Right. And so that was a really, it's so true. So when I read that book and it explained everything, I was like, oh my gosh, this is what I've been doing. But I had to be ready. I had to be willing to hold that mirror up and look at myself and say, this is what's not working for me that I've been doing my whole life. It took 30 years for me to realize that I had spent 30 years doing things just because. And another interesting story about that, if you've ever read Secrets of a Millionaire Mind by T. Harv Eker, he talks about his wife making a roast. And whenever she made it, she would cut the ends off. And he was confused by it. And he thought, you're cutting the ends off of a perfectly good roast. Like, that's good meat. It's not like she was cutting off bad parts and putting it in the pan. And he asked her one day, why do you cut the ends off? And she said, I don't know. That's how my mother always did it. So they went to her mother and they asked, why do you cut the ends off of the roast when you make it? And she's like, I don't know. That's how my mother did it. So they went to her grandmother and they asked her, when you make roast, why do you cut the ends off? And she said, oh, because my pan was too small. It never fit. So I cut the ends off so it would fit in the pan. But it's again going back to that asking yourself why. And I had to do that for myself and ask, why am I being so mean to myself? And why do I think it's not good enough? And why am I afraid of celebrating my accomplishments? And really looking at it and realizing that it's something that might have fit back then, but it doesn't fit where I am right now, and it doesn't work for me anymore. It's not helping me.
I love that. I love that. So how, when we start getting into this, we're like going after our dreams, we're changing things, we're, you know, stepping out of this fear of being an imposter, but still in our minds, we're thinking, who am I to do this? How do we change that thinking to who am I not to do this?
Exactly the way you just did it. You flip the question around and focus on the positive have the self-awareness to know that you just said that out loud. You just said, who am I to do this? And then flipping it around and saying, who am I not to do this? And focusing on your strengths, learning more about yourself, recognizing the things that light you up, that you're passionate about, that you love doing. And really, I think it comes down to asking yourself 3 questions about whatever it is that you want to do, and asking yourself, is what I'm doing going to help other people? And is what I'm doing going to make me happy? And if I do this, is it in line with my goals, my bigger vision for my life, whatever that is? If it's beyond getting promoted at work or beyond starting a business, why are you starting that business, or why do you want to get promoted at work? And does this create a path to that big goal? So are you building a stepping stone to get there? And if the answer to all 3 of those is yes, then you really have to say, it would be selfish for me not to do this, because I'm about to help so many more people, and I'm about to share this passion with the world, and really giving yourself credit for being able to have that impact.
Well, I can so see, like, just from my own personal story, how the questions you just put out there are so right on. Even just all the way from me thinking about doing the TEDx talk and sponsoring, I knew it was a big move, and I was afraid. I was afraid of the move. Like, I was standing back, wanting to do it, and every time I thought about it, because my purpose is to help and empower people and help them to step into their greatness, and not to be oppressed, but to step out of that and step forward into the life they were meant to be living, and to be their authentic selves, to live the life that was meant for them, not live the life that somebody else wants them to live. And so I know this beyond a shadow of a doubt, that this is what I'm supposed to be doing. But yet I was kind of back in that comfort zone and that fear. And I knew this was taking a leap for this little Midwest Ohio girl to go and sponsor a TED Talk in New York City. And so I'm like, and what's my husband going to think? We're going where? What? And so I took the leap, because it just, every time I thought about it, I knew I wanted to do it. I was excited. It lit me up. It felt right. So I will tell you then, after this happened, I've been feeling I'm supposed to speak. And so I've been, I always stand back a bit. I think about things, and I'm, that whole, who am I to do this, starts kicking in. And I was feeling this about speaking. So anyway, I had a vision. I don't know if you guys believe in visions, but I literally had a vision. I was thinking back to when I was in Colorado at the Grand Canyon. And it started with this. I'm at the Grand Canyon. I'm scared to death of heights. But I pushed my family to go. I pushed them out on the skywalk. I'm the mover and the shaker. I got us all there. But I am like, oh my God, I don't know. I don't want to step out on that glass. I don't want to look down to the sheer drop in the middle of the earth, And I asked somebody, I'm like, do earthquakes, happen here? And she's like, yeah, every day. And I'm like, oh my gosh, thanks for that. Like, now I really was like, whoa. So I overcame that fear, because I realized that, well, I could die anyway if there's an earthquake, and I want to die doing something I want to do. And I always tell people to push past fear, because what you want is on the other side. So this I'm really afraid of. So this is me really pushing past fear. But I just felt like it was this important step that I had to do it, even though I'm definitely afraid of heights. So I pushed myself out and got my picture, got my proof. And then I stepped back on the glass, and I was like, oh my God. Then I was like, well, no, I have to push myself. So I walked the whole entire perimeter, And then by the end, I put my face on the glass looking down into the canyon. And I felt like it was this big step for me because I was overcoming this fear that I had. So as I was thinking back to this moment, and it's touched so many moments in my life since, because I was less afraid to do things just from taking that step. I had this vision of, it was like being at the Grand Canyon, and one foot was back here on the past, where all the old beliefs, the limiting beliefs, the comfort zone, the things that maybe you're stuck and holding you back. And the other foot was across the canyon on all the new things I wanted to do and the things that I feel my heart being pulled towards, my bigger purpose. And I realized I had a choice. I could either say, stuck back in the old things in the comfort zone, or I had to make a choice. I had to take a leap to be able to do the things that are in the future, because otherwise it's going to keep moving apart. And pretty soon I had to make a choice. So I'm either going to be split in two, I'm going to be stuck back in my comfort zone, I'm going to fall into the canyon, or I'm going to leap into the things I want. So that was my vision.
That's so beautiful. And I'm so glad you shared that. I got chills listening to you about putting your face down on the glass by the end of it and overcoming that fear. And I think I've done a lot of things like that in my life. And one thing I've noticed is that when you're letting go of the past, it's totally normal to feel sad. And I've looked back at some of as you were telling that story, I was thinking about some of the things that I had to let go of and how I cried and I was upset about it. And even though I knew in my head, like I was telling myself, I am leaping into something better and I am excited and it is my passion and I am going to love it when it happens, it still feels like a loss. It feels like you're letting go of something that's such a part of you. And so sometimes we do feel sad and we do cry over letting go of those things, even though we know logically that the next step is going to be incredible. It's that fear of the unknown and that fear of like not having it all figured out. And you've just mastered everything that's where that foot was back in the canyon. You know that it's comfortable, like you said, but it is really scary and it is normal to feel those emotions whenever you're going through a transition like that, where you have to decide, do I stay comfortable or do I push myself?
And it's like these neural pathways that you've created. It's just actual science. Tony Robbins talks about it, where you want, like, it's maybe with weight loss, like you're used to being a certain weight and all of a sudden you lose weight, you're in this new size, but it doesn't feel right or comfortable to you. And maybe you're afraid of what it's going to bring or the success of it and the attention of it. So you rush right back to your comfort zone and you sabotage yourself because it doesn't feel comfortable to you yet. So you have to push past that, he said, to make new neural pathways so that the new normal feels comfortable. And so like what we're talking about with being in the, letting go. My coach asked me, because I told her this vision. She's like, what are you willing to let go of? And it's so funny that that's what the words that came out of your mouth, because it is so true. I was afraid of all the things I was holding on to that I didn't want to let go of, but to move forward, I have to let go of some of those things. And I was, that's my comfort zone. So I totally just think this relates so much to what you go through too, when you are stepping into something cool and you feel that imposter syndrome.
Yes, I agree.
Yeah. Wow, this is deep, guys.
I know.
I mean, I don't know if, oh my gosh. Oh, somebody says, I want to put my face on the glass. Gonna take some time to get there, but I will. Yes, you will.
You will. I love that. Did we have any questions?
Yeah, is anybody out there that would like to ask Tara a question. She writes for the Huffington Post, and she helps connect people with influencers and just stepping into their greatness and their personal power. So if you guys have any questions about something you'd like to do, or that you just like to express a fear that you'd like to overcome, and perhaps press your face against the glass, we want to hear from you.
And I'll check back if any questions come up later when people are watching the replay too.
See, let me see if it is okay. And then let me see if I just had a couple quotes I wanted to just put out there, because I think they go right along with what we've been talking about today. And one is from one of my favorite, Michelle Pfeiffer, the beautiful Michelle. I still think people will find out that I'm really not very talented. I'm really not very good. It's all been a big sham. And I think that right there is very much what we're talking about today. And maybe hearing somebody that famous will make you realize that it's okay to have some of these emotions, that other people have them that are doing really cool things, and that you can move forward through this. Kate Winslet, sometimes I wake up in the morning before going off to a shoot and I think, I can't do this, I'm a fraud. And Maya Angelou, I've written 11 books, but each time I think, oh, they're going to find out now. I've run a game on everybody and they're going to find me out. So I think that, the first problem, any kind, even limited success, is the unshakable conviction that you're getting away from something, and that any moment now they will discover you. It's imposter syndrome. And I'm trying to think. Oh, something my wife, Amanda Christian, the fraud police, Neil Gaiman. So that was another quote, just to kind of give you an idea of what the fraud feeling is, and just the whole imposter idea. So I hope we've helped everybody out there today. And I thank Tara so much for coming on, and you're a delight. I want to acknowledge you for all you've been through, for what you've transitioned into, and all you're becoming.
Thank you. Thank you so much for having me. And I'm excited to check Facebook and check all the comments.
Yay. Thank you so much. Thank you so much for coming on. And thanks everybody for joining us. Please review us in iTunes and leave some feedback. And thanks for listening today to the Sisterhood of Sweat.